Hello everybody and welcome to yet another reading vlog. Thank you so much for being here. In the past couple of weeks, I filmed a lot of things for reading vlogs, partly because I was reading the Akotar series and I wanted to document that whole process. I took a break from that. I read the first three books in that series and I just feel like I deserve a break from that world. For today's video, I want to read a duology that I've been wanting to read for a really long time, and now I finally can because the second book in that duology was finally published. I am obviously talking about the Charlatan duology by Holly Black. So the books are Book of Night, and the second one that just got published is Thief of Night. Before I actually tell you more about the books and the duology and stuff like that, I feel like I have to talk a bit about our fairy queen Holly Black, because I feel like most people are associating Holly Black with the Folk of the Air series. A lot of people read that series when they were teens and they have a lot of nostalgia associated with that book series. And even though I read The Folk of the Air a couple of years ago in 2022 or 2023, something like that, and I still liked it, I don't have that nostalgia associated with it because I read it so late in my life. But what I do have a lot of nostalgia associated to is this other book series from Holly Black and Tani Di Terlizzi called the Spiderwick Chronicles. And I hate to be that person, but this appeared in 2007. I was 10 years old and I was absolutely obsessed with these books. I have this vivid memory from my childhood of going to the bookstore after school and just looking at these books, because back in the day these used to be really expensive. They are in these hardcover editions, and even though they're not like you can see how small they are, right? They were still pretty expensive. So I used to go to the bookstore and just read a couple of pages from the other books in the series that I didn't have yet, and then I would just beg my parents, please buy me this book next, and they would go with me to the bookstore and buy me the next book in the series. But yeah, I do have a lot of nostalgia and a lot of things associated with these books. I remember that in the first book there is this illustration of a house in which the three kids from the story are moving into at the beginning of the book. Let me quickly show it to you, this one. And in my 10-year-old mind, I guess this house right here looked really similar to a building that was in a park near our house. And yeah, every single time I was in that park, I kept thinking oh my God, this is the house from the Spiderwick Chronicles. To say I was obsessed with this series would be an understatement, I think. And imagine my surprise when I rediscovered the act of reading for pleasure, and not because I have to, but because I want to and I'm enjoying it in my adult life. And I kept hearing about the Folk of the Air series. And I was like, where do I know this name from? Holly Black. It sounded so familiar, yet I didn't know why. And when I searched on Goodreads, I saw the Spiderwick Chronicles listed on her author profile. And I was like, oh my God, Holly Black wrote the series that I was so obsessed with during my childhood years. So suffice to say, I am very excited to finally read Holly Black's adult fantasy debut, The Book of Night, and then later on to continue with The Thief of Night. Also, shout out to the person who sold me this book on Vinted. It is the hardcover edition that I really wanted. Not only that, it is the Waterstones exclusive signed edition. So other than the fact that this edition has these gorgeous stenciled edges, this book is also signed by the Queen herself, and I cannot believe that I'm in the possession of this book. I am absolutely without words, honestly. So yeah, shout out to the person who didn't rip me off and sold this book to me for a really good price. And because I have this really bad track record with continuing series that I'm in the middle of, I really wanted to wait for the release of the second book in this duology and then just read everything start to finish in one go, where in multiple goes, but you get what I'm saying. So Book of Night, all I know about this book is that this is Holly Black's adult fantasy debut, and it might also be potentially about a thief, but that's everything I know thus far about the book. Okay, without rambling, let me read you the blurb of this book to learn more about this and what it is actually about. So it says, Charlie Hall, I don't know why I pronounced it like that. It's Charlie, baby. So, Charlie Hall has never found a lock she couldn't pick, a book she couldn't steal, or a bad decision she wouldn't make. She spent half her life working for Glaumis, I think it's pronounced. Magicians who manipulate shadows to peer into locked rooms, strangle people in their beds, or worse. Glaumis guard their secrets greedily, creating an underground economy of grimoires. Holly Black. I am already obsessed if this is gonna be about grimoires and the underground world. Completely obsessed. And to rob their fellow magicians, they need Charlie. Now she's trying to distance herself from past mistakes, but bartending at the local dive, she's still entirely too close to the corrupt underbelly of the Berkshires, potentially. Not to mention that her sister Posey is desperate for magic and that Charlie's shadowless and possibly soulless boyfriend Vince has been hiding things from her. When a terrible figure from her past returns, Charlie descends into a maelstrom of murder and lies. Determined to survive, she's up against a cast of doppelgangers, mercurial billionaires, Glaumis, and the people she loves best in the world, all trying to steal a secret that will give them a vast and terrible power. I really want to get into this book today. It is dedicated to everyone who has ever come to New Year's Eve at my house, which is really fun. So yeah, I want to go brew another cup of coffee. I want to start reading this book, and I will update you when I have some thoughts on Book of Night by Holly Black. So, see you in a bit.
Sitting in the basement apartment I rented with you, remembering the holiday party we had with the crew. Romeo was roaming the garden, Saturday was spent in a parking lot. Sitting in the basement apartment I rented with you. Remembering the holiday party we had with the crew. Romeo was roaming the garden. Saturday was spent in a parking lot. Gave it all we got. It was so with you. Following the leader down 8th Street to get what we can. Crawl up the walls, make a few calls to the man. Promising the prominent angle. Find the square feet of the triangular man who always had the land.
You guys, it is so cold and dark and gloomy, and it's been raining for the past like day and a half, and I don't think it's gonna stop anytime soon. The fall weather is here in its full form, and I think it's gonna stay here for a while. So, I made quite a good progress with Book of Night thus far. I read more than half of this book. I am currently on page 178 at chapter 22, and I wanted to give you an update with my thoughts so far about this book. The main thing that I don't really understand is the magic system. I can't quite picture how it works. And I wonder if that's done on purpose, because in the first couple of chapters, we learned that the shadows from this world of Book of Night are possessing some magical abilities, some magical powers, and there are certain people, not all of them, but some of them, that can awaken their shadow. Our main character's sister is quite obsessed with awakening her shadow, like she wants to possess magical abilities, but she doesn't really know how to do that. There are all of these like underground forums and blogs online, like on Reddit and stuff like that, that are talking about different ways on how you could awaken your shadow. But it turns out none of them really work and none of them can be really replicated. We learn later on in the book that potentially it has something to do with trauma, like going through a traumatic experience can awaken your shadow, but because trauma is different for each individual, you can't really replicate that, and it differs from individual to individual. And even though all of these things are explained, or like we can see them in action when certain characters are confronted with these things, we don't have a clear understanding yet as to what is it specifically that these shadows can do. Obviously, because they're quite incorporeal, they are very good at stealing things. They're very good thieves. So shadows can be used for that thing. We also learn how to kill a shadow. Apparently, if you stab them with an onyx knife or dagger or anything like that, they become corporeal in that moment and you can kill them. I'm wondering now if this is done on purpose, and exactly how the magic system works is going to be revealed later, because that's somehow important for the plot, or it would reveal something that's quite major and it's kept for that being revealed later on in the book. I'm not quite sure yet. That would be my only thing that I'm not really understanding and that I can't really quite grasp in the book, is how the whole shadow and magic system works. But Other than that, I really, really like the writing in this book. It is a Holly Black book through and through. Like, even when you start reading the prologue, like, you know what you're getting yourself into. Holly Black's writing feels so modern, yet in the same time, it transports you to the world that she's talking about. This is an urban modern fantasy, and we have like a lot of references of things that we also have in our real world, like apps and phones and technology. Duolingo is mentioned at some point. Also, they go to an Apple store, or they want to go to the Apple store, which is quite funny because she mentioned an Apple store in the Cruel Prince book as well. Our main character, Charlie, is wearing Crocs at work. She's a bartender, and apparently she wears Crocs all the time. But talking about our main character, so Charlie Hall is a thief, and she's been trained, arguably groomed from like a really young age to become this major thief. Her mom had quite a lot of toxic relationships with men, and her boyfriends were quite abusive towards Charlie and her sister Posey. And Charlie came up with this plan because their mother wasn't listening to them. She came up with this plan that she's like in contact with like spirits of people that passed away, and in that way she could make her mom listen to her and to her sister, and she was able to separate her mom from her boyfriend at that time that was quite abusive towards her mom and towards her and Posey. But this thing catches the attention of one of her mom's friends, and this friend is making Charlie help him with his, let's say, trickeries. He's pretending that he's being a medium, or that he can communicate with spirits and ghosts and stuff like that. And she is helping him, tricking people into that. She's like playing the part of the ghost or the person that's like possessed or anything like that. So they are making quite a team, and they are fooling a lot of people. Now, something happens when Charlie is still very young. Her mentor is killed, and she is seeking retribution for that. We also have a very influential rich man who wants the Book of Night, that contains apparently the secret for immortality, and that has something to do with the shadow magic. Again, I'm not quite sure how that works and how that's relevant as of right now as to where I am in this book, but I'm sure it will be explained later on. Charlie has a very secretive and mysterious boyfriend. He is not in contact with anyone from his past life. He doesn't have a shadow, and people that don't have shadows are quite ostracized in this world. And Charlie thinks that his family kind of like cut him off because he doesn't have a shadow. There's also a murder at the beginning of this book, and Charlie somehow knew this guy who was murdered, but not really. Like, she was just serving him a drink at the bar, and then later on he was killed. So she's kind of trying to see what's up with that, why he was murdered, and she starts uncovering this whole underground plot that might potentially involve her as well. The bar that she works at is owned by a dominatrix that's retired but still does the dominatrix thing from time to time, and that detail was really funny to see. Odette, the dominatrix, is also like a very mysterious character that I'm sure we will learn more about in the upcoming pages, or in the second book of this duology, because I think I have like a certain idea as to who or what she might be doing later on in this duology. But I'm just curious to see if that's true or not, and if my intuition is correct. Another thing, and I think the last thing that I want to mention for right now, is that I really, really like the structure of this book. So we are following these characters in present day, and we are following Charlie as she's trying to find this book and uncover this murder mystery, basically, and like go to work and stuff like that. But we are also seeing these characters in the past and how they became the people that they are in the present timeline, and I really, really like that touch. I love how Holly Black talks about those past moments of the characters and how they were shaped by those moments, and I think you could clearly see those things in the present timeline as well. So I quite appreciated that touch. I think the structure of this book works really, really well for this type of story. The prologue of this book talks about a boy who was somehow able to awaken his shadow, and we don't know who that boy is until later on in the story. I really liked how the prologue is kind of like tying in with the story that is uncovered in front of us later on in the book. Like a teeny tiny bit of information is revealed, and then everything kind of starts to make sense. I really like the pacing and how that was done. I think it's really clever to have these things that start unraveling, and then you start looking at everything in retrospect, and you're like, oh yeah, like this thing that was mentioned at the beginning of the story really makes sense now. That's why I'm not quite worried about the magic system issue that I was talking about previously, because I'm sure like it has to be explained at some point, right? But yeah, this is my update so far for Book of Night. I am enjoying it, and I want to continue reading more of this today. Hopefully I can finish it. We'll see. We'll see if that's doable. But yeah, I will go read now, and I will update you when I will be finished with Book of Night. I finished Book of Night last night, no pun intended, but I did stay up until 1 a.m. to finish this book because the second part, like the second half of this book, it is so fast paced. Like you get reveal after reveal after reveal, and all of the chapters that might seem like a bit slow from the first half of this book really did pay off because the things that we learn in the first half of the book about the characters and the world that they're living in and stuff like that really do pay off at the end where everything is revealed and everything happens so fast. My heart was pounding. That might also probably be because of my high blood pressure, but I choose to believe it's because of this book, okay? I loved the ending of this book, and I am so happy that I waited for the second book to be released in this duology because I don't know how I would have waited 3 years otherwise for the release of the second one. The ending is bonkers. There is this specific thing that happens towards the end of the book that I can't really talk about in detail because it would be a spoiler for the ending of this book, but there are reveals after reveals after reveals, and our main character has all of these puzzle pieces, but she doesn't really know what to do with those. Like, she doesn't really know how these connect to what she's trying to do and what she's trying to achieve. And as she's thinking about what everything means, I have this eureka moment, and I'm like, oh my god, I think I know what's happening. And right after I think that, after a couple of paragraphs, our main character has the same thought process as I did. And then later on, it is confirmed like that's what's happening. And I'm like, oh my god. I don't know how Holly Black's mind works, but I am honestly so here for it. As I said, obsessed with the ending. I did end up giving this book 4 stars just because of like the slower pace from the first half of the book, and also because of like there's this glaring thing with the magic system that I still can't quite grasp yet, and the things that were happening in like the second part of the book made me kind of forget about that, and it turned out being not as relevant as I thought it would be for the ending of this book. But in the back of my mind, I'm still like, wait, but what do we do with the magic system? Like how do we navigate this? So overall, very happy with this book, and I am excited to get into the next one today. Hopefully, I can read a good chunk of that today. It is raining outside, it is very dark and gloomy, and this atmosphere is like really prolific when it comes to reading for me personally. So I do want to start the second book, which is Thief of Night. I don't know if you can actually see the title in this horrible lighting that I have today, but it is what it is. I didn't read anything about this book, like I didn't read the blurb or anything like that, because I did that a couple of times with series when I read them. Like I read the blurb of the second book even though I didn't read the first one, and this time, very proud of myself, I didn't do that. But now that I know everything that happens in the first book, I want to look at the blurb of this book to see if we have any spoilers for the first one, to know if I can read it to you or not. So it says, in the highly anticipated sequel to the number one Sunday Times? What happened to the New York Times? So, number one Sunday Times bestselling Book of Night, the question isn't just how to survive, it's how to protect yourself from the one thing you can never escape, your own shadow. And then, oh, major spoilers. So, if you didn't read the first book and you're looking at the blurb of the second one, please don't read it because it basically spoils the ending in its entirety. Just a PSA, okay? So, yeah. Very excited about this. I'm curious to see how Holly Black is going to conclude this story that took quite an unexpected turn at the end of Book of Night. So I am going to brew myself another cup of coffee and I will start reading Thief of Night. And I'll update you as I go with my thoughts and feelings and stuff like that. So see you when I have something to say about Thief of Night. in a very quick turn of events, I already finished Thief of Night. I started this yesterday and I kept reading this book last night, and also this morning I just like binged it and finished it because it has like a very rapid pace, and also like a lot of things are happening back to back to back, so you don't really have time to catch your breath. And that's why I didn't really stop to make an update, because I really wanted to see what's gonna happen next. And yeah, I finished it. And honestly, this second book, no notes. It was perfect. It was quick. It did what it needed to do. We learn a lot more about the shadows and the world building and how the magic system works. And there's this like whole underground black market of shadows that are being trafficked for people that want to have like an awakened shadow basically that can perform magic. It was really, really interesting. It was, as I was saying, fast paced. It was quick. It did what it needed to do. And now that I have the context of this second book, I honestly think that the things that were kind of like lacking in the first book were done on purpose, because with the first book my only complaint was that I wished more from the world building and from the magic system for those to be explained more in detail. Now that I read the whole thing, I genuinely believe that those things were excluded from the first book intentionally, because we really need them in this book to be explained, because this is where the plot thickens. And I loved how everything was tied with kind of everything that we knew from the first book. I almost feel like this should be like only one book with both of these like bound together, because they are not that lengthy. The first one has around 300 pages and the second one has like 270, 280 pages, something like that. And I think this could work really well as like a longer fantasy book, as like a standalone, or at least you can read it that way. So yeah, Book of Night and Thief of Night. Not gonna lie, I was a bit worried after I read the first book, because I was like, okay, like things. It really depends what the second book is going to do, and I mean, Holly Black doesn't disappoint ever. I will say though, if you are a fan of the Folk of the Air series, the young adult series that she has written like a while ago, and it's very, very popular, and I think will always be very popular. I don't know if you are going to enjoy these books just because tonally they are so different. Obviously, it's still tied to this element of like folklore and legends and fairy tales and stuff like that, but it's not to the extent of the Folk of the Air world, and it shouldn't be, because these are very different concepts, as I said. So yeah, if you are looking for a modern urban fantasy with like a lot of very interesting characters and a very well written plot, I would honestly wholeheartedly recommend you Book of Night and Thief of Night together. Like, you have to read both of them to get the full extent of the story, obviously. And the atmosphere from this world of the charlatan duology really reminded me about another book that I read, and that is When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. They only have in common the fact that they are modern urban fantasies and they are on the shorter side of things. Obviously, this is so much shorter than the Charlatan duology. It's only like 160 pages. I know the second book in this series, duology, whatever it is, already was published. I didn't see it yet in the bookstores from Romania just yet, so I might have to order it from somewhere else if I can't find it in the upcoming months, because I really want to read it. So if you read the Book of Night and Thief of Night duology and you want to experience something kind of in the same realm, obviously the plots of these books are very different, but the atmosphere and the backdrop of the plot is kind of the same in this like urban fantasy setting that takes place in our modern times. A little rec for yourself if you want to read something similar. I almost dropped these books. And with that, this is the ending of today's reading vlog. Thank you all so much for joining me yet again. Do let me know in the comments down below if you already read this duology and what are your opinions on it. Or if not, please do let me know what other duologies or series you would want me to read in the near future. I would like to hear your recommendations in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, do all of the things if you want to do that and if you want to support the channel. If not, then that's totally fine. And I will see you soon with a new video here on the channel. Bye, everyone.